Hey guys, welcome back to Quick Notes with Chris. Today we're going to be talking about the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad and what you can actually learn from it, take away, apply in your life and start basically putting yourself in a better financial position now. So the first thing that it talks about is a successful investor called Robert Kiyosaki. He's actually the author of the book and the person who's delivering some of the best knowledge that you can actually learn today. Now, he essentially claims that he had two dads, a rich dad and a poor dad. Now, one had a PhD. Right? The other one didn't finish 8th grade. Both dads would end up leaving things behind, one of them being tens of millions of dollars, with the other one being nothing but debts and bills. But the person who ended up returning which would surprise you. You see, the one who never graduated 8th grade actually ended being the one who left behind tens of millions of dollars. And he talks about some of the things that he taught him, some of the things that he ended up learning, and some things that you can actually learn yourself, especially whenever it starts to apply. The first thing that you can actually sort of take away from this is that financial education, financial, maturity and stuff like that is not stuff that is generally taught in most schools. In fact, the people that you have to learn those types of things from aren't schools or degrees and stuff like that, but your parents, right? So your parents are the ones who generally, for most cases, teach you how to act responsibly with your finances. Now, the problem is that the chances are your parents probably aren't in the top 1% when it comes to earning. So, by default, for the most part, you're learning how to be poor, or at the very least, having poorer habits and ways in order to spend your money. Now, the first thing that the book talks about is discerning the differences between assets and liabilities. Now, if you've never heard the term assets or liabilities, it's really simple. Assets is anything that puts more money towards your pocket, so it pays you more for it. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Now, the problem that a lot of people come across whenever they're making these so-called investments is that they don't actually know or can't discern the difference between the two, or they make poor money choices thinking that they're going to get a return on their investment. For example, I once had a friend who invested he put himself into $40,000 worth of debt for a car that'll actually never return in any value whatsoever. In fact, generally speaking, the second you drive off the lot, it reduces its value by 30%. Okay, now his justification for it was that, he's going to keep it for 20, 30, 40 years until it becomes a heritage, and then he'll be able to invest it and basically make money off of the initial purchase. Now, the chances of that happening, not only for one, are incredibly slim, but if you look at the definition behind an asset and a liability, nothing but he's going to be forking out constant checks of money week after week after week after week. And eventually he might be able to pay it off and he might be able to sell it, but he would never be able to sell it for more than what he purchased for. In fact, he'd probably sell it for a fraction of the cost, more likely $5,000 or so by the time that he finishes the payments off. But the thing is, a lot of people make that. So you might be thinking, that's not me because I would never finance a vehicle. Nothing's exactly wrong with financing a vehicle as long as you do it in the right way. But a lot of people will make these so-called investments in things like TVs, laptops, computer, subscription services and stuff like that. But the truth is, those are all taking more money out of your pocket. More money not going towards you, but going just towards someone else. Now, the second you start to understand this, you might be thinking, okay, well now I need to start making my money work. I might start investing my money into things. The best place that you can invest your money in, especially if you're just starting to the business world, starting to move out and starting understanding that you need to increase, the type of income that you have, is in yourself. Always start within yourself, educating yourself, developing your character, developing your skill set. That's the first place to start. But outside of that, Robert Kiyosaki talks about, investing into stocks, bonds, but also making sure that you're investing in the right ways. So, and he talks a little bit about, he runs over briefly, but the cash flow quadrant. Now, the cash flow quadrant, it basically discerns the different types of income there are out there. And it's really interesting because it shows the difference between his rich dad and his poor dad. So the cash flow quadrant basically has an active column, so people who actively work for their income, and there they have employees, and underneath them self-employed. Okay, now the other side, the passive side, people who passively work for their income, meaning they don't have to actively work for it, they have investments and business systems, right? So business owners, investments and business systems, okay? Now basically what you can basically take away from it is that if you're an employee, you're working because you like security, right? You're not too going after it, you're happy with where you're at. You just like security and a consistent level of of payment coming in. If you're self-employed, now a lot of people discern self-employment versus business, and I'll tell you what it is right now. So self-employed means that you value being your own boss. It doesn't mean that you actually care about earning money like a business. You just don't like the idea of people telling you what to do or how to work, which is fine. Now, at the end of the day, you guys are still working the same amount of hours, if not more, if you're self-employed, and you might be getting paid a little bit more if you're self-employed, but for the most part, right, you're still actively working. And in fact, if you stop working, the money that you have coming in is also going to stop working. Now, over to the other side, the passive one, this is about working one time smart and consistently getting paid for it. So the first one, let's talk about investments for a second. The first investment that's probably most common is business. So owning your own business, but you're not self-employed by it, which means that you've put money into a business program, whether it's anything, you name it, and you're getting a percentage of the profits, and you don't necessarily have to be working in it. That is awesome. There's also things like real estate, stocks, bonds, that sort of thing. Now, the problem with investments is that you first need money before you can make money. That's the first challenge that a lot of people come by, and also it can be a little bit high risk. He talks about the fourth quadrant being business systems. Now, business systems, you're basically buying into an idea and a proven system that's going to basically, hopefully, consistently give you return on results. The most common example would probably be franchising, so things like Hungry Jack's, McDonald's, where you're buying into a training program and just duplicating the results. But something even as simple as the music industry is actually very similar to a business system. So if you take any successful artist, for example, maybe Justin Bieber, he would have invested 10, maybe 15 hours into any one of his songs, and he's consistently getting paid for it once that song's released. He's released the project out into the world, and every single time someone plays it, listens to it, he's going to make a consistent return on the investment of time that he put in back then. Business system is probably the easiest way Robert Kiyosaki talks about in order for somebody to get out of the active or the self-employed quadrant and start moving towards being a part of the ownership, the assets, and hopefully increasing your lifestyle. There's a few other things that he really talks about and covers in the thing, but the most important takeaway that he sort of talks about is that where you learn your financial maturity from. Who are the people that you're listening to? Who's your rich dad? Who's your poor dads? For the most part, most people have poor dads, right? They have people who are going to be teaching them and duplicating the wrong habits that they should not be implementing in their life. What you need to be doing is actually looking towards your rich dads. Me personally, I didn't have the richest dad, but I did start learning from people who did know how to do it. That's Robert Kiyosaki, a lot of other books. There's hundreds and hundreds of self-development programs out there you can actually take and actually utilize in order to actually continually becoming a better person, continually increasing your financial assets, and basically start moving towards becoming more successful. And don't make the same mistake that a lot of other people do. Duplicate what it is that you're doing with someone else, whether that be your kids, a friend, family members, and stuff like that. It also talks about how there's so many more benefits in being in the asset, passive sort of side. For example, tax breaks. Tax breaks are something that a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people view corporations as a bunch of giant buildings. That's really what it is. But in reality, it's just a portfolio. It's a portfolio of people who are basically earning through a business's profits rather than an hourly rate. Okay, now when you do that, you're able to actually have access to over 20 tax breaks. Okay, there's the most successful billionaire investor of all time. He actually pays less tax than what he pays his receptionist. His receptionist makes anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000 per year, and she pays more tax than a billionaire, which is crazy. And that's some of the benefits that you have whenever you start, running your own business. You have access to up to 20 tax breaks, right? You can release things like your cars, your vehicles, put more investments into it. You can claim that anything and everything is a business asset as long as you have a good account. And that's not being dodgy or anything like that. If you can claim that it's going to increase your business's image in terms of ambassadorship or anything like that, you basically have the ability to return it on tax. Whereas if you work a job, you in most cases have up to 2 tax breaks. Now, I'm not the best at math, but over there I can already see the types of benefits that come when you start moving into the world of business. Now, the second thing that it talks about is that understanding that your money is itself an asset. It's there to make you more money. A lot of people don't understand this. They think money in the bank is where it's at. Just having it in a bank account, it actually does nothing for you. A lot of people are already successful. They view money as an asset. An asset means something that brings you more money. So they view their profits as something that can bring them more profits. They don't want to just sit in their bank doing nothing. If it's doing that, it's doing nothing for you. They want to make sure that you're putting it more and more into assets, and so on and so on and so on. Once you sort of master that and you understand that, then you can start to think, oh, okay, now, the skepticism starts to take over. A lot of people think, okay, well, what if the stocks doesn't give me a return? What if the real estate doesn't give me a return? If you're asking those same exact questions, because they're fair questions, as long as those liability buys. For example, your laptop, your TV, your bed frame, your mattress and stuff like that, stuff that's actually never going to make you more money directly. As long as you're asking the same questions with those purchases as well, then that's fair. But if you're not, then you really should be thinking, maybe it is worth the risk, because I could be putting my money here when it has the potential to give me more of a return, or money over here, which definitely has zero chance to return. Okay guys, well, so to summarize, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, make sure you're learning from the people who you want what you have. Don't take advice from people who are living a lifestyle that you don't necessarily like. That doesn't mean that you can't learn from them, but don't take direct advice from them. Well, we'll be making a lot more of these videos in the future. So I'm Chris, and we're here to help improve yourself and put you in a better position to succeed. Thanks.